Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And looks like Disney's not getting its money's worth out of Star Wars compared to what they've been spending on these shows. Mm-hmm. And we got two different Forbes articles talking about how expensive Andor was. And then people are talking about The Acolyte, but Andor is very expensive too. And
way more expensive.
Way more expensive, but there's some little asterisks there, as to why it's more expensive. But basically, yeah, Disney's not getting its money's worth out of these streaming shows, and I think we're going to see them cut back on a lot of this stuff. And for the amount of money they're spending on streaming, they could greenlight multiple movies.
Which is funny because this is what Paul Tassi, he's done an about face turn on this, on all of this now, and that's where I think his point is with this, which I don't disagree with him on this. But the original article came from Caroline Reed because she did one of her deep dives where she found the budgets, goes to usually overseas and finds out the code names and then gets the budgets for things. And it turned out that Andor's budget, they think, is going to be $645 million for both the first season and the second season. Now, I want to point out, though, one thing you have to remember, too, is that Andor had way more episodes. Yeah, so Andor has 12 episodes per season. Other shows like The Acolyte had 8 episodes, and their budget was like $230 million. So multiply that times 3, and that would be the equivalent of 24 episodes, would be like 3 seasons of the other shows. And 230 million times 3 would be closer to 700 million. So that falls right in there when you figure out they have about 3 times the episodes of one season.
Yeah, it's incredibly expensive. If you look at, here's a list of the most expensive television series ever, according to Wikipedia. Over $10 million per episode, right? Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is the most expensive.
Yeah, that we know how that went. I like how She-Hulk Attorney at Law is one of them.
Yeah, She-Hulk is number 3, $25 million.
So Andor is less than She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and we know how She-Hulk went.
Stranger Things. I think Stranger Things, season 4 had a lot more special effects, but I think it's the cost of the actors, because I know they all got like massive pay hikes. Because it's not, it's expensive, but it's not, come on, realistically, it's not that expensive. And you look at season 1, and actually season 3 seemed like it was more expensive. I think it's just everybody's price tag went up.
Well, WandaVision and The Mandalorian are on here too. And you have to remember, when they first started doing these shows for Disney Plus, back when Disney Plus started, they had promised the budgets of films for these shows, and they weren't planning on doing as many shows as they end up doing. So they're probably spending less on these as it goes on, because they have to get more things out, especially when it comes to Marvel. So I don't think they're spending as much. But She-Hulk, that's laughable, because that show was just.
I'm looking at this. I'm like, some of these make total sense. House of the Dragon, Sandman, they're all special effects heavy. Mandalorian, ER. Because they had big actors on.
I think that's what it was, because of the cast. It's such a large cast.
Seventh Heaven.
Seventh Heaven did.
Seventh Heaven's one of the most. What?
Well, it went on for quite a while, but yeah.
But yeah, adjusted for inflation, because it's back in the 90s.
Dang.
$31 million per episode for Seventh Heaven.
For what?
I don't know. Like, were they getting ridiculous money or what? And didn't the dad on Seventh Heaven, didn't he wind up being like a creep or something?
I don't remember.
It's like, geez.
I didn't pay attention to
Seventh
Seventh Heaven.
And it was like, but like Seventh Heaven?
I didn't pay attention to that show, so.
I didn't either. This is one of those shows, like all those heaven shows, and Touched by an Angel, Seventh Heaven, Party of Angels.
I don't know.
I don't know what I'm saying, but they're like, they had all these like
so 2. So if I had nickel for every one, I'd have 10 cents.
Uplifting, spiritual. Like, we had Highway to Heaven.
Yeah, but that was a lot earlier.
I know, but
anyway, can we go back to the point? I guess the spiritual shows cost more money. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, is it because they got to figure in like the tithe or something? I don't understand. But like these make sense, right? Cheers, because of the actors, and God, whatever. Anyway. Let's talk about
neither here nor there. But anyway,
let's talk about Andor's budget. Okay, so this is where do you want to start? Paul Tassi's article.
Well, yeah, because he just sums it up. I mean, you can see Caroline Reed's article as well if you go out to look at it. It's right there. He kind of sums it up to discuss it on here, so we'll just use his because it's more summarized. They're saying that the total cost of Andor and Disney Plus will be a stunning $645 million between 2 seasons. Again, want to point out, The Acolyte was about 230 million for 8 episodes. This is going to be a total of 24. 230 times, 3 is closer to 700 million. So it still was more expensive.
Jeez.
But you'd think they could reuse stuff. So I don't know. 290 million was spent on season 2 specifically. Probably less was spent on that. Well, it's about half, I guess. But you think they would reuse stuff.
They do. That's one thing I noticed about the Disney Star Wars is that they reuse a lot of props, like a lot of the aliens and the stormtrooper costumes and stuff like that. And then
Tassie's really, really, really salty personally about the Acolyte, like really salty about it. So he's like, your initial thought may be, well, Andor is great, so surely Disney must think it's worth spending that much. But Disney is not in the charity business because they basically said that the Acolyte won't get a season 2 because it was too expensive compared to the viewership. And despite that fact, yes, you could certainly argue that Andor is the actual best thing in their entire Star Wars era as produced. It is nowhere near the viewership that would justify those kinds of costs because he's pissed about the Acolyte. Andor is also greenlit, I think, season 1 and 2 at the same time, and it was a ways back when Disney had more money to throw around than they do now.
Yeah, because they could afford to take chances. I mean, Andor, I guess it really wasn't, because you can't look at like the reason they spent the money. They're like, well, Rogue One made money, and people like Rogue One, so let's do a Rogue One series. It's money in the bank, and not realizing that like between then and now, there's been so much damage done to the brand. It doesn't matter how good the show is, It's
I
like
think
people
so.
just aren't watching.
And he said, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett. Yeah, let's look at this too. Boba Fett, people hated because it ended up being crap. Obi-Wan, they made it about Leia and people weren't happy about it, and stuff like that. So and then Mando and Grogu, you had basically characters that were similar to what people liked. And it was the first Disney Plus show they put out. Yeah. And it ended up getting quite the following for it. People were more willing to give things a chance then. And then as more and more of the stuff came out, they're like, this stuff sucks. But Andor, yes, everybody says it's one of the best things out there, but it was the least watched show until The Acolyte. But again, Tassie is most likely very mad because he thinks there should be more Acolyte. Disney has said Acolyte is not getting more seasons because it costs too much compared to the viewership. And now they're saying they're going to spend that much on Andor, and the viewership wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So it does seem like a double standard, which I'm sure is why he's mad.
Well, this is interesting, though, because, he said even if it was the #1 show on Netflix, pulling in billions of minutes, it might not be worth spending that much money on it. And I'm thinking Cowboy Bebop. Mm-hmm. Like Cowboy Bebop. Now, granted, people didn't like Cowboy Bebop, but they canceled it before they even, within a day or two of it being dumped. They're like, yeah, we're not getting enough watch time to justify spending this much money on a show. So I think we're going to see a lot of cheap shit on Disney Plus.
I don't know. But then here we go. After Andor aired, The Acolyte then became the least watched Disney Star Wars show and was canceled for the plainly stated reason that viewership did not justify the cost, which is funny because Tassie had many meltdown articles about The Acolyte and about people who didn't like The Acolyte prior to this. Okay. Yeah. So he's really mad about that. But it's not wrong. The Acolyte was the least watched show and they canceled it, but Andor is one of the least watched shows and they did a lot more on it. Again, if you multiply the budget times 3, it's still not as where The Acolyte was.
Right.
Or would have been.
And I don't understand where the money for that went, unless
I don't know where the money for Andor went either.
Carrie-Anne Moss, she was in for 5 minutes.
I don't know.
Pay her a bunch of money. I don't know.
And the point that he's trying to make, and I don't disagree, is that they're making these Star Wars shows, and I would say argue Marvel too if She-Hulk cost that much, where they're spending ridiculous amounts of money and budgets on these shows that do not get the viewership because people are just over Marvel and Star Wars. They don't want to watch these shows. They would probably go to the movies, but I think Star Wars, they're doing Mandalorian and Grogu first because that's their best shot at getting an audience because I think they know they done screwed the pooch and no one's going to come to watch their movies.
Poor Goofy.
I'm just like,
gosh.
I'm just saying. And they know one's going to come. So they're like, why we spend the money? But then why are they spending on these Disney Plus shows also?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong in that regard. No. You're better off to spend the money on a film because you more likely get your money back than you would on these shows.
Yeah. And this is why, we talked about the Animation Guild in another video. I think it's going to probably run before this one. But this is why they're cutting back on animation and effects-laden programming for streaming because you don't make that money back, right? If you could put a documentary up or a reality show or a scripted show that's way cheaper to make and actually has more mass market appeal than science fiction, that's what they're going to do. And we've had periods in entertainment where we didn't have a lot of science fiction. We didn't have a lot of expensive TV or expensive movies because the appetite wasn't there to justify the cost.
Now, another thing that might be part of what's in play here, given Disney's past. The Andor character was Disney's.
Yes.
The Rogue One was Disney's. The Acolyte was Disney's. Obi-Wan was not their character. Mandalorian Grogu was their stuff, but it was clearly based on Boba Fett and like a Yoda character.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, Ahsoka wasn't exactly Disney's either, but they're putting a lot of their effort and money into things that they own. And so that partly could be why they're spending more money on the Acolyte and Andor than they probably should have, because they're trying desperately to find a foothold to make their shit stick. I'm not wrong. I mean, they want it to stick. They're trying to
fling it against the wall
and see what sticks and what doesn't.
Well, they thought it was going to be Rey. They thought it was going to be Rey, and
it's not sticking.
No.
And it's like, because you don't fundamentally, I think, understand what makes Star Wars good, except for Andor actually seemed to get it. And even then, people were so over it because by the time they got to Andor, they're so over Disney Star Wars. And, they don't like, after being called names for how long, you're just not going to go tune in. I can't tell you how many people, when I said Skeleton Crew wasn't that bad, and I only saw the first 2 episodes, I haven't seen it since, were telling me that I don't care if it was good or not. I'm not watching it just because it's Disney Star Wars. So they have a fundamental problem where they've lost their audience with the amount of crap they've put out and the attitudes towards people. And then what happened to Gina Carano and everything else, people are turned off.
Well, I was like, I didn't even bother watching season 3 of Mandalorian because I was so pissed off about the Gina Carano situation. Then I heard about the Jack Black and the Lizzo and the whatever. And, season 2 was really uneven for me too, because it's like they had these, like, okay, here's an episode of Boba Fett. Here's an episode of like backdoor pilots. Here's a backdoor pilot for Ahsoka. Here's a backdoor pilot for a Luke Skywalker, maybe, show or something. And I was like, what's this have to do with the Mandalorian?
People are catching on to this, and it's like they're turned off. And the more Disney attacks fans or allows their people to go out and attack fans for all the claiming that you're attacking these actors, the actors are also attacking the fans. They're letting this go on.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and people are just getting turned off. I'm sorry.
It's Star Wars at this point, like, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even know how the Mandalorian movie is going to do. Like, that's what they're betting it, like Star Wars on the Mandalorian movie. I don't know how it's going to do because I think that ship has sailed.
Well, not just that. It depends. Like, are they tying it to the series? Because they're tying it to the series. Then no one's going to care because season 3, the viewership was in steep decline. It would be really, because, you jumped the shark with season 3. You sure as hell shouldn't spend money to put on the screen because you don't have anything else that people are going to go see.
That's just it. They don't have
You've already ruined it all.
And I think they were hoping this was going to be like Marvel, where they were going to put series out and then they're going to, build up to the movie and people are going to go see them, because you have to watch everything, right? You have to watch all the shows and you have to watch all the movies, and just like Marvel, and people are even breaking the Marvel habit. They're like, I'll go see the ones that look interesting, but I'm not gonna watch them all.
Well, I think Disney Plus saved Disney during the pandemic, and I think Disney Plus has a lot of good things that are helping Disney, but I also think that Disney Plus destroyed Marvel, and I mean, it was already on the decline, but Marvel and Star Wars, after their movies, making more shows to glut the market and then making subpar things. You guys hasten the demise of your own brand, but you could have probably got your brand out there a little bit longer, and then announcing all these movies and canceling them constantly.
Yeah.
It's just, you guys have made too many mistakes. I don't know if you can do it. We only know Mandalorian Grogu coming out. We don't know what else is coming out. People are over it.
I think they're waiting. I think, as far as the Rey movie goes, I think they're going to wait to see how the Mandalorian does. And I think they're kind of hoping that maybe the momentum from The Last of Us with Pedro Pascal, like The Last of Us and Fantastic Four, will maybe push people to go see the Mando movie. But
I don't think they will.
Baby Yoda was a 2020 thing, and it's over. I think you had your moment. You should have dropped the movie.
I think Star Wars in general is over.
It had its moment. That's the thing too. Like,
you killed it. Good job, Disney.
Yeah.
In like a decade.
And yeah, between that and the celebrities associated with it, it was very. I think Star Wars was very much a Gen X thing, and everybody has their time, right? And then things fade away, and that's just kind of how it goes. And I think that's what's going to happen in Star Wars. I don't think it's something that's going to last forever. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Mm-hmm. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.